Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. It's that time again. It's Tuesday and we want you to play a little Magic. This week's midweek Magic is Historic Pauper. I have kind of mixed feelings on this one. Pauper is very accessible for new players in that it only allows common cards. The fact that they're throwing in Historic slants it a little bit against new players because, well, if you just started today with your collection, you don't really have much in the way of Historic cards. And also Pauper can be very challenging for the same reason it's accessible. It only allows common cards, and again, if you just started your collection today, you only have so many cards to choose from, and it's kind of difficult to build a deck without the higher level synergies that come in particular with the uncommons for budget decks. But not to worry, I've got a solution for you. Stay tuned. But before we get into all that, let me take this opportunity to invite you to subscribe to the channel. See, back in January of this year, I set a goal of having 100 subscribers before the end of the year. And boy, have we come a long way since that time. And while I may be doing a lot of the work, I can't do it without you. You see, this isn't one of those huge YouTube channels that gains or loses 1,000 subs in a day and hardly notices. Around here, you matter. Just like all these folks here matter. See, thus far we've got up to 81 subs out of our goal of 100. And while I know they're not all listed here, these are the folks that have answered the call and made their subscription to the channel public information. And I want to take this opportunity to not only invite you to join the community if you have not done so already, but thank all of these fine folks, because around here, my audience matters. It's what shapes the channel. It's what I drive for. And one last thing, I'd like to do something cool when we do hit that goal of 100 subscribers. Problem is, I don't really know what to do and have very few ideas. So if you have a moment and you have a thought, comment it down below on what you think we should do to celebrate our goal of 100 subscribers being reached. Now, what were we talking about? Oh, right. All right, so if I have done this correctly, this is all of the red and white commons that are available in our new player experience collection for this year. And as you can see, I've got 88 cards here and no lands yet. So baseline, we need to cut about half the cards that we're seeing in this build. And to start off, let's go with some of the relatively low-hanging easy cuts. The first one that comes to my mind is Dragon's Fire. We have a lot of removal within this collection in both red and white, and since we only have one dragon in this collection, that being the Sellsword, I think we have to cut the Dragon Fire out. That brings us almost immediately to Goblin Tunneler, which is just kind of a weak card for us to have so many good things here. Nest Robber is another one in that build, but we may leave that for just the moment. The Pledge Mage, a 3/3 defender, just does not look at what we want for that go wide collection. The fact that we'd have to spell an instant or sorcery that turn in order to get it to attack is just not really going to make the cut. Let's see here. The Ravager is a maybe. The Minotaur at a 2/3 for 3 is a no. Let's go ahead and cut all 4 copies of that out. Let's see. Pillar Shop Rescuer could actually be really good if the game goes long, but my guess is it's not going to go that long. And Reduce to Ash. You know what? Honestly, I think everything at this this cost really gets cut, because a deck like this, you want to really top out at that 3 or 4. Let's see here. The veteran, with that having the ability to have haste, could actually work very nicely. The ogre, on the other hand, I think will not. And a 3/4 for 4 that ventures is a no. We will keep the sellsword for just a moment. So that brings us down to 65 cards. So let's start taking a look at some of these. A 3/2 for 3 that gets bigger as you gain life could be very solid in this deck. Expel, it's situational in the fact that it has to be a tapped creature, so I'm going to cut one of those. Let's see here. As long as you've completed a dungeon, it has double strike, so a 2/3 that probably isn't going to have double strike, not that good for us. Iron Verdict is a definite maybe, particularly at just 1 copy. Core Celebrant as a life gain proc is pretty good. Minimus Containment, we have an awful lot of removal in this deck, and to be considering giving our opponents treasures, that seems like something we don't want to do. Demon Bolt seems really, really good. Goblin Gathering is actually a card we're going to talk about at the end of the video, so we will hold off on that for just a moment. The Shield Mate is exactly what we're looking for, a 2/1 for 2 on rate that replaces itself with a 1/1. That is pretty perfect in a go wide situation. Dawnbringer Cleric is decent. It may not make the cut on this, we shall see. Story Seeker is really good for this deck. Hobgoblin Captain is pretty fantastic in the Pack Tactics. Hobgoblin gives first strike, so yeah, really good there. Royal Eruption, very solid, particularly late game to take out a big creature. Scavenger Blade is a maybe. Sudden Breakthrough, I mean, that is okay. What I think we are going to cut here is the Resolute Strike. I think we have better options in Storm Strike, and the fact that we only have 2 equipments, the Scavenger Blade, that seems like another easy cut. So that brings us down to 55, and let's do a little trick here and see how our lands are looking on this. Not bad. So that brings us back up to 79. Let's see, Hellhound is a landfall creature all by its lonesome. We have nothing else that procs to landfall, so I think we will cut that. The Raging Goblin, Shock, Storm Strike, and 10th Street, all very solid cards for this deck. And I think we're going to cut the Nest Robbers here, and also the Dawnbringer Clerics. That brings us pretty darn close to getting where we need to be. Do we cut the sellswords? That's a tough choice there. I think we do. I think we cut both of those, which means the Sudden Breakthrough and the fact that it gives us the treasure is really less important. Molten Ravager, it is a nice mana sink, but that's really all it is. So I think we're going to drop that, because something that attacks for 0 is just not what this deck is trying to do. I am going to go back in and recheck the lands here. It's still giving me the same count, and I think we are going to cut at least one of those, and we'll go ahead and cut a mountain there. So we need to cut 2 more cards at least. And it may be this Hawk here. A 1/1 flyer for 1 is not bad. Stormseeker. Do we cut the Eruptions? The Expel? both of these are situational. Deal 5 damage or just... So yeah, I think the Iron Verdict goes out because Expel is not damage based. It just nukes the creature. The Celestial Unicorn still pretty solid. What to cut here? What to cut is Demon Bolt the correct thing to do here? I don't think we need 3 copies of Demon Bolt. So now let's talk about a couple of core cards here. One being Goblin Gathering. Create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to 2 plus the number of cards named Goblin Gathering in your graveyard. So this just gets better over time. The first time you cast it, it's going to create 2, then 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let me see, is that right? No, it tops out at 5, excuse me. You cannot have a 5th copy of Goblin Gathering, at least not in this format. So it's an okay card. It's not the sort of thing I would really play, and if you're going to play it, you should play all 4 copies. Tin Street Cadet, on the other hand, is a much stronger card. When it gets blocked, it replaces itself, and then if you can use something like a Storm Strike or a Shock to eliminate what was going to kill it so that it can do it again, is pretty darn solid. And in reviewing the deck, I came to the discovery that I did not include the mono white color challenge decks. So I had to make some adjustments here. I added in 4 copies of Charmed Stray, and for that I am going to cut the Ranger Hawks. They are great cards, but not as good as the potential for Charmed Stray, especially with the lifelink. Similarly, I added in Pacifism for that lower end curve, because really we're not so much worried about removing the opponent's creatures as we are as taking them out of the combat situations, particularly at a Pauper level. So with that, I am going to free up the 2 copies remaining of Expel. Let's see here, Royal Eruption. I don't believe I need 3 copies of that, particularly since it's mostly a late game alternative. And given the pacifisms, we may cut that all together for other options. Now, of course, this is a historic Pauper event, so that gives us access to a lot more cards to potentially build with. Although if you happen to be brand new to Arena, as I'm sure a lot of you are right now, you don't have a lot of historic cards in your collection. And what I encourage you to do is use a lot of those initial wild cards to make strategic additions to your historic collection. Don't necessarily burn those on making standard choices, because you have other ways of getting those standard cards, like drafting and eventually opening packs. So for now, reserve those wild cards for your historic plays. And the first historic recommendation that I would make for you is picking up a single copy of Healer's Hawk. And single copies is something you're going to hear a lot from me, because this card as a singular copy also opens up its use for Brawl, whereas a second copy of the same card does not do that. So instead of using 2 wild cards to get 2 copies of the same card, I will almost always recommend that you get 2 distinctly different cards with those 2 wild cards, simply because it will open up more Brawl options. And I think Brawl or Commander, or however you want to look at it, is one of the most fun formats available on Arena. Now, this particular creature has a ridiculous pedigree of being a 1/1 for 1 with flying and lifelink. Flying, of course, is a premier evasion in this or any other format, and a lifelink is something you're going to want to see in a lot of your white cards now and for the foreseeable future, both in standard and, like this card, for historic. The second card that I am recommending for you is Forbidden Friendship. This is another one of those token generators for that go wide strategy. It will also pay dividends in the fact that it's a sorcery for other decks as opposed to a summoning spell. And right now is still included in standard. So if you've been around the channel for a little while, it's very likely that you already have this card. If you are brand new and just looking at that new player experience, this is a fantastic addition for you that you will be able to play in standard for about another 2 weeks or so. Now, to make room in the deck for these, I am thinking about cutting the Demon Bolts on this. I think the Foretell capability is not really that great for us in this deck because we have other things that we want to be doing. That means that everything at our 3-drop spot is really an absolute beast or a win con for us. Goblin Gathering is one of those cards that we talked about very briefly. And let's talk about another one. Let's see, Goblins. And I want to turn off the historic for the moment. And that is in Adventures. So this is the card in... No, that is not. Just kidding. Is it an uncommon? I think maybe it is. Yeah, so this isn't a card that we can use for this deck because it is restricted to just commons. But you see a pair of goblins creates 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. So it's exactly the same as Goblin Gathering, except it doesn't get stronger based on the numbers that are already in your graveyards. The other side of this is creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn, which is essentially Burn Bright. So this card is fantastic, particularly if we do something like an artisan copy of this deck where we're allowed to include uncommons, because then we can cut 2 Burn Brights and 4 Goblin Gatherings and replace it with 3 copies of You See a Pair of Goblins. So long term, that's the kind of evolution that this deck will make in order to be viable in other formats.
Wait, what's that? You didn't catch all that? Well, Matt wants you to know the links are in the doobly-doo. And of course, an event like Midweek Magic is all about those 2 free, rare, possibly upgraded ICRs. There is no cost to playing other than your time, and this is an event that you should definitely be getting involved with every single week. And while I'm not a particular chaser of cosmetic items, when you do take part in this event, if you have the option, link up with your local game store and get a redemption code for 2 free cosmetic upgrades for your collection. Not real cards, but cosmetics can be fun. And of course, if you are a player of physical Magic, be sure to partner up with your friendly local game store whenever possible, because as far as I know, Walmart, Target, and Amazon does not provide space and community for Magic players. And with all that having been said, please take this opportunity to like, comment, and subscribe. It is the budget way to support this budget channel because it doesn't cost you a thing. Do it for Graham. Do it for the algorithm. Do it for the iced coffee. And until next time, I'll see you in the arena.